Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Bailey Torosian, and today I kind of want to do a little bit of an introduction video with you guys because as much as I have posted here thus far on my channel, even though it's fairly new, I haven't really sat down to talk about who I am and kind of what I'm doing here and also just who I am in my personal life. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it a little bit. And I'm just going to give you some little basic things about myself and also answer some of the questions that you guys have asked me on my Instagram when I posted a poll about what you guys wanted to hear about. So we're going to be talking about that as well and just kind of touching on some of those topics. So I started this YouTube channel not too long ago because I've done YouTube in the past and I've also had a fairly good Instagram following. I'm not saying it was, that many, but I had around 5,000 followers on my last account. And then, I kind of wanted to restart because I had branded myself as a vintage fashion influencer, so to speak. And while I loved that and while I was getting a very good handful of brand deals for the amount of followers I had, I also just found myself not really fitting into that anymore. That was very much college me and lesser so of adult me who's kind of stepping into a new phase of life. And so wanted to start fresh, kind of wanted to just get to the right audience and just kind of give myself some time to figure out what it was that I wanted. And I even had my Instagram private for a bit so I could have some privacy while I was figuring everything out. So all of that being said, that's kind of why I'm starting this YouTube channel. I'm kind of refreshing my Instagram page. Everything is just getting a new sort of update of sorts. I also wanted to start the YouTube because I have a lot going on in my life right now and I want to share the journey, the process, so to speak, of becoming the best version of myself, learning who I am and figuring things out day by day. Last year, me and my husband moved to Los Angeles. He's getting a PhD out here in Southern California. And so we wanted to obviously move and everything. And then shortly after we moved out here, we went back to Kentucky. We got married in Kentucky. And then, yeah, the rest is history. We've just been here since in Los Angeles. And we are enjoying our first year of marriage, which has been the ultimate adventure. And I'm so thankful that I get to spend the rest of my life with my best friend and that I've had the ability to spend this last year with him, just us living alone and just establishing ourselves as adults, so to speak, and it's been great. But then a few months ago, maybe about, I don't even know how many months now, 6 months ago, I don't know, we started talking about having children. We've always kind of talked about it, and before recently, I never wanted to have kids. I was very vehemently against having kids. If you ask anybody in my family, I would talk so horrible about just kids in general, wanting kids, being a mom. I really had a very negative view of that. And even with my husband, I had kind of contemplated, before we had gotten married, maybe we'll have a few kids, we'll just see what happens. And he always wanted kids. And so, wasn't anything that we really argued over necessarily, but it was kind of one of those things where I was I don't really know if I want that. And so, yeah, but throw back to a few months ago, we finally started seriously talking about it. I think something in my brain just kind of flipped a switch, so to speak. And, that thing that was not on my radar was now a huge thing on my radar. And I was super excited to start our family and have a family out here and just, I don't know, really just start our again, adult life together and start our family and just do the things that I said I never wanted to do because for some reason that just started seeming so appealing to me. So then, yeah, not long after we started talking about it, I did end up pregnant and I'm currently 22 weeks, just short of 22 weeks now. And I'm honestly so thrilled that we're having this baby on the way, but it's also brought up a lot of questions for me about my identity, who I feel like I am in this phase of my life. I've been also kind of, just struggling with the fact that I recently left a 6-year-long career with the military. And that's been a big life transition, even though I was just in the reserve because I was always in survival mode. And I think this last year I've had so much time to just, sit down and breathe and figure out who I am. And, I'm just starting to question all these things about my identity and kind of wanting to figure out who I am in this stage of my life. I think in the past, I really equated my productivity to, my worth as a person and as a human being. But, now that I've had some time to relax and breathe and just be a stay-at-home wife this past year and, now I'm going to become a mom, it's really kind of put things into perspective for me that my productivity doesn't make me a more valuable person than anyone. And you know, if you're somebody who's not as productive, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are less valuable. But also, you know, I've found that like the things that I once didn't want to do are the things that I now want to do, now that my brain has had some time to just like decompress from the stress of being in the military and just going constantly for years and always trying to do the next best thing. You know, I always thought that to be successful and to feel good about myself, I had to have a major career, that I had to always be like the top of every social organization or work situation that I was in. And now I just realized that that's not the case. And honestly, if my only thing that I do in my life is help my husband and my kids and the rest of my family achieve their goals, then I think that's enough for me, because quite frankly, I've been finding more meaning in just being a stay-at-home wife and helping around the house and getting prepared for this baby than I have found in a lot of different areas of my life over the years. And I feel like I'm finally starting to find like what it is that speaks to me, and that's just, you know, helping other people get where they're going. And I'm actually just so happy with that realization. To touch on one of the questions that I was asked on Instagram though, another thing that's been kind of going on, just for some context if you're new here, is that me and my husband decided that we were going to become Catholic. And with that being said, it wasn't a crazy decision, but it was a little out of the blue. I will share a full comprehensive video kind of talking about my spiritual journey in the future, and kind of go into that. But me and my husband, when we first met, we were largely like baseless when it came to religion. My parents are both pastors. I was raised very conservative in the church, Protestant denomination, obviously. And we, you know, I had that still, but I didn't have a church that I was going to at the time. I didn't really feel rooted, and I honestly felt really disenamored with Christianity as a whole. And my husband, he was kind of like, I feel like agnostic might be the closest thing to what he was at the time, but we were both kind of figuring things out. And so we never really talked about it too much, like at the beginning of things, other than just that we were okay with what each of us was doing. But I'm very spiritual. I really enjoy talking about spirituality and stuff. And my husband, he's very philosophical and he likes talking about philosophy. And long story short, after a lot of contemplation and going back and forth with things over the last 5 or 6 years, we've finally kind of landed on Catholicism as, you know, what we want to do religion-wise. I think for us, Catholicism kind of offered us, you know, a non-emotional like background for Christianity. As much as I think everybody should find a place that is best for them and that feels good for them, I'm personally not a fan of going to worship services where people are like clapping or singing really loud, or it's like really dramatic, or like there's pastors doing flips on the stage. Like the mega church kind of thing has just never been my cup of tea personally, even though if that's your thing, that's awesome. No shame there. It's just personally not mine. And I don't really connect with God that way. And so, you know, I never really liked that. And then I had tried out Judaism because at the time I had a really, you know, a few years ago, I had a really, really rough relationship with Jesus and that whole concept, right? Like, you know, the Messiah, all of that. And so I was really struggling with that. And so I tried out Judaism for a few years, but never really like fully got into it, if that makes sense. And then, you know, after just like reading a lot of like tradition and actually like diving into like the text, I feel like Catholicism just made the most sense because there's a lot of tradition that goes behind it. It's a very non-emotional service, you know, like you sit there pretty quietly the whole time. It's just like very like methodical, and I just really like that aspect of things. And I also really love the traditional Latin Mass as well when I do get the chance to go there, even though we don't strictly go to the TLM, we go to the Novus Ordo most of the time. And so we're going to be doing OCIA next fall, which is going to be nice, and hopefully it will give us the opportunity to meet people and like learn a little bit more and just kind of get into that, because we have been struggling to make it to Mass every Sunday with the fact that I've been pregnant and sick and been dealing with a lot, and we've also had family and just different things going on this summer. So hopefully that will give us a more like constant, you know, habit of going and being into all of that and learning more. So anyways, just to answer that question. Now, as far as who I am in my personal life, like outside of just being a stay-at-home wife and soon to be a mama, even though that's a huge part of what I do and I love that for me, but another thing that is just some things about me, I guess, is when I am a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, I found, these are just some random things, but I found that, you know, having things outside of the home is obviously great, you know, make social connections. As much as I love my husband, I also love going out and talking to other women and like having friends that are like kind of doing some of the stuff that I'm doing as a girl. And so I really have loved the Daughters of the American Revolution out here in Los Angeles, and I'm hoping to get involved more this year through 2 committees that both do stuff with the military and like veterans and stuff, which I think will be great considering I am a veteran. And so that's been a really, really exciting adventure, and I can't wait to experience more of that and learn more because I haven't been in the DAR for too long technically. I think I've only been in for like 2 years, but I was inactive for a little bit. And then another thing that recently happened is I reinstated my membership through my college sorority after a kind of tumultuous start with things back in college, just given the fact that I was in the Army and I was hurting and I was just dealing with a lot. And so it's cool that I'm able to like kind of go back to that in a sense and, you know, reconnect with people, even if, you know, I'm not always wanting to be around people because I'm an introvert and I don't always want to socialize, but it's nice to have the option to, and it's nice to get out and like kind of put myself out of my comfort zone. So that's like, those are 2 of the things that I'm kind of doing now. And then I'm also looking to start volunteering as well with a collegiate chapter, but I'm still kind of waiting to hear back from their volunteer rep about what's available and where they can kind of see me. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, all in all, those are kind of my like things that I do outside of just being a stay-at-home wife and soon-to-be mom, and I don't know, just really enjoy it. But yeah, all of that stuff kind of being said about myself, I'm sure there's a lot more I can mention about myself. Like I have ADHD, I struggle with my neurodiversity sometimes, and I've just dealt with a lot mental health wise. I think that's the other big aspect of my life, is just that part of my story, and you know, how I went from being at some of the lowest points in my life to being where I am now. Like I could talk about that, and I probably will in another video, but not in this intro here. That's another thing that I've kind of been dealing with and going through with my whole life, and you know, kind of it's all come to a positive point here at this point in my life, but couldn't have made it here without all of that struggle. But also, you know, I want to talk about, again, what I'm sharing here on this YouTube is like, again, I really just want to share positivity. I want to share messages to women like myself who are going through life and might be feeling a little bit confused about things and their identity and who they are, because going from like your early 20s or like your late teens into like a new phase of life, like maybe your mid 20s or just getting a little bit further, it is such a trip, and it is so different than when you're like, you know, you're young and like you're having fun and like you think you're taking everything seriously, and then you realize like, you know, there's more important things in life, like your family, and like maybe you're stepping into a career if you are one of those people that's pursuing that, and like there's just, you know what I mean, like, you just start learning that there's so many ways to live your life and it's all up to you about how you do it, but also like there's so much more meaning in things than like going to parties or like having a social status that's not going to matter in 20 years, and like, I don't know, just being a good person. And I don't know, I'm just going to try to document the process of me becoming a better person, because I have a lot to work on still as a human being and as somebody who's becoming a mom and wants to do the absolute best for her kid. And I just want to share all of those like moments where I'm figuring things out with you guys. But anyways, I'm gonna stop this video here because I think I've been yapping for just a little too long, which is another thing that I should share about myself. I am a oversharer, chronic yapper. I'm all about the TMI moments. So if you like that kind of thing, then stick around because that's all you're gonna get here. But yeah, I don't know. All that being said, I'm gonna stop this video here. Thank you so much for watching and learning a little bit more about me. Next time I'll probably go into like more questions and stuff. I kind of like answered some questions too, like throughout this that I had been asked just about like life in general lately. But I do want to kind of like do one of those answered questions about life, and like hopefully we can get into some more specifics with that. But for now, I'm gonna call it a day. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you around the channel.